Good morning to everyone in this auditorium. My senior colleagues Ramchandra Murthy garu, K. Srinivas, and my dear friend Nageshwar. Although Ramchandra Murthy garu said this is a function where we are in a way celebrating the contribution of Nageshwar during his long career, but somehow I did not like the word superannuation, especially in the recent 2-3 months of my writing. I found a chance to write on 2-3 personalities. One of them is Professor C.R. Rao. I don't know, many of you must have heard about Professor C.R. Rao. Now he is the greatest statistician India produced, and is rated as one of the greatest in the world itself. Now in his story, he retired at the age of 59-60 from Indian Statistical Institute. But my dear friends, for the next 40 years, he contributed so much that most of us would be amazed, and I was one of those who was following his career for a long time, and I found retirement had no meaning when you look at persons like him. Although in the Indian context, universities, organizations say we should retire at 60, and don't allow us to go beyond that. And I am sure things are changing, and for me, I feel Nageshwar is not retired. He is continuing his journey, which has already been very, very laudable. And for me, Nageshwar is also a classmate. And when we were in MCJ, I never thought Nageshwar will become a serious journalist. I thought he will get into social sciences, do academic work and all that, which anyway he is doing. So my association with Nageshwar is quite long in a sense. So what I would like to do, as he said, look at journalism, past, present, and the future. Historically, if you see, journalism, progressed in India very nicely after the independence movement. I think that was one great advantage for people like us who came into journalism, because newspapers had a role, a definite role. And when I joined Osmania University, I came with a lot of romantic ideas of journalists. We can do a lot, not so big, but we can change society, we can change opinion. And also, we can see a lot of places, meet great people. It's a very romantic idea, a wonderful thing to get into journalism. And by feeling of I want to, we became a journalist. Now that is what, gave us a lot of confidence. And as my senior colleagues have pointed out, we had instances where we could pin down politicians. We could question, leaders. And in one occasion, I remember Mr. N.T. Ramarao, came and apologized to journalists. And I was only, I think, 5-6 years in the field. So journalism had a lot of, importance. And we had learned from our teachers in journalism that, news reporting is to inform, to educate, to, entertain. So 3-4 great values. So we went around, doing all this in the best possible way. And I think we are reasonably well off. And for the information of all of you, I think none of my colleagues, friends from different places who went to engineering, MBA, never asked me what my salary was. So I was, so excited going to a lot of places, and they would listen to me. Oh, you went to Raj Bhavan, you went to Parliament. So that was the kind of excitement that journalism offered. The money was not the great driver. So several years, it was all learning. It was, trying to tell people your neighbor would come and say, what happened? So you felt very happy that, you are a journalist, you know a lot of things. But sometime in the 90s, let me recall Dilip Patgaonkar. He wrote in his book. Now, I think around early 90, he went to Czechoslovakia. And I think Czechoslovakia was under communist rule. Then he asked the professor, what do you think of the newspapers here? So the professor said that most of the news is, controlled. There is a little bit of advertising, a little bit of advertising. The only truth reported is sports and weather. So in 3 years later, he went back when I think the Czechoslovakia turned into a democracy. So he asked, I think, some university professors. Then they said, now the majority of the news is, controlled by advertising. Even sports are sponsored. So there is very little that, is free in this country now. So what happened in India at that point of time also is something which is very important for journalism students to know, that we, reformed, we opened up our economy. So corporates got into lot of, media, television ownership and all that. So the second important point that I would like to state is a change in the ownership of media. Earlier we had people who owned media and were also, influenced by the freedom movement. So there was all these, characteristics that I defined. So post-economic reforms and initiated by our own P.V. Narasimha Rao from Andhra Pradesh and Manmohan Singh, the ownership of the media started changing. And what I said about Czechoslovakia and Dilip Patgaonkar, in a way started coming into India, wherein, corporates' influence on news, changed dramatically. And television, which we all hoped, and I as a journalist in the print, also was hoping I'll become a television journalist because I was into broadcasting and all that, but somehow I did not get in. Began with a lot of promise. It's a very good impact. I'm not saying today it is not having impact. The only debate is good or bad. So the reach substantially, improved. So we had a scenario where media really, reached a lot of people in this country and started, making a very good impact in terms of awareness creation, in terms of, educating people and all that. But the most prominent change, friends, that has happened, and wherein, journalism has taken a beating according to me, is journalism has shifted from news creation or news coverage to perception creation. Now this is the most important thing which I think all of us should realize. And as journalists, where are we today? Are we into news or are we into creating perception? The second thing is the ownership change. Now ownership change is dominating, the entire media today. So he who pays, calls the tune. So that is what is happening. And the third thing is people like us who came into journalism with some sort of a mission, a great grandiose ideas. Some of us are very disappointed now. That has changed to journalism becoming a career. Journalism today is a career wherein people ask what is the package that the ACG students have got, or what is the package that University of Hyderabad students have got, or Usmania University. So journalism has become another profession wherein all the dynamics of any career are, inculcated in this. So you see a changed perception of media. Media no longer is the great, watchdog, keeping an eye on society, all that. It's now changed into another business proposition. So you have investment. What is the return on investment on this channel? What is the return on investment on this news portal? So that is what has changed. And I have seen editors from that era to this era wherein they'll call, how many stories have you done? Was what I was asked for 10 years. Later on I was asked, as a special correspondent, this is real life I am telling you, you are paid 1 lakh rupees. What is the return that you are giving? How many stories? What is the impact of your stories? So that is the kind of transformation that has come in. So you look at this shifting change in the media, especially journalism from the last 30-40 years. And as I see today, I had like what Nageshwar on 30th will experience in 2020. But from 2020 onwards, I have been writing, nothing has stopped. And in fact, a lot of my friends keep saying that I am more active today than earlier. But ये तो social media का कमाल है, not my own great writing. But there is nothing like ending a career in journalism. And I see a lot of scope and a lot of opportunities for young journalists. But the missing thing is, one, the romance, the great role we thought, the great excitement, and also, whether you are changing society, you are impacting lives, or so on, is all, a little bit of shift. From there we have moved into shouting, yelling, becoming an influencer, becoming somebody who will, change, political discourse, create a narrative, and try to influence. As my colleagues have said, we are also setting agendas to, what should be done, what you should follow. So we need to look at the definition of journalism today. He is somebody who is trained, who practices certain principles that you learn, is a journalist, or anybody, citizen journalist, or somebody who will, start a YouTube channel, blog, write, has a million, page views, and, creates a narrative sponsored by somebody. Is he a journalist? I think a little bit of churn should be required. She is required in determining who is a journalist, who is practicing journalism, and who is practicing this new kind of perception creation and all that. And finally, before I conclude, I just wanted to illustrate practice of journalism in these three, past, present and future. In the late 1980s, I was asked to cover a lecture in CCMB by one of the top AIDS virus, discoverer called Luc Montagnier. I had come to CCMB, drove in my scooter, and then at that event, there were 6 Nobel laureates who came to CCMB. And I don't think this has ever happened again in Hyderabad. And Luc Montagnier was in the height of fame about AIDS discovery, and AIDS was a big problem. I came, listened to him, did not understand much. I asked 1 or 2 colleagues, scientists, so they tried to explain. Now I had to go back. I was in PTI, so I went to my boss. He said, this is what I heard. He said, you write 3 takes. 3 takes is 1 take is 100 words. So I wrote 3 takes, and that was the end of it. Now, in 2020, when the COVID virus was, in really high, this man opposed a vaccine development for COVID. Now, a person who is discoverer of AIDS virus and working on the vaccine now opposes a vaccine. And I, as a reporter, could surf Google, could go to their institute where he was working, get information and write a story very easily without even talk to anybody. So the ease of writing a story today is that much easier. There is no going, listening, reading and writing. Now it is only, you search, if you have, email contact or phone, you get information and write. So this third part about what will happen in future. Now, in future, will you use chat GPT and say, look Montan here, and then the story comes and you push it? So how do you look at the future of journalism and, writing? Will you use technology, AI, chat GPT, you use dictaphones and then create a story? Or you go through that excitement of, writing? So you look at how technology is influencing, how corporates are influencing, how your, impact as a perception creation are, increasing. So with these thoughts, I would leave you and wish Nageshwar all the very best. And he in fact represents all these three. When he left the journalism department, he got into print, then he moved into television. I've been seeing him a lot of views, and then entered into YouTube, which is now the highest rated, social media channel, and is doing very well. So he has evolved into all this past, present and future, and I wish him all the very best. The only thing I wanted to point out for all the students of journalism, I used to feel Professor Nageshwar Rao perhaps would have done a lot if he was with the university more. He became an MLC, he went to the media, he went in television, he contributed a lot outside also. So I wish Nageshwar comes back to the universities use his services and everybody gains. Thank you very much. All the best.